There's a question that I've actually been thinking about for a long time, and that question is, what happens when someone has all the potential, someone has the work ethic, someone has everything that people feel should allow them become great, and they don't actually get to that greatness that people expected of them? What happens then? Because I feel that's a very tricky place to be in, to be honest. That people have all these expectations of you, they see the potential of what you could become, and you actually never become those things. And on this episode of the podcast, we're actually going to explore that. And I'll start off by giving a story of Markelle Fultz. And for people that watch basketball, they know who Markelle Fultz is. This is not even going to be an episode about basketball, but I do think there's a lesson. There's something that can be taken from what happened to Markelle Fultz that we all can relate to. I do think there's something there. And to start off, I'll give a backstory of Markelle Fultz. So in 2017, Markelle Fultz was the number one overall pick in the NBA. Like, it was a consensus overall pick. The scouts, the general managers, the teams knew that he was the best player in the draft. So out of all college players that play basketball, they said this guy is the real deal and should go number one. Even so that the Philadelphia Sixers actually drafted up to get him. So they gave out draft picks, which was the third overall pick, I believe, to get Markelle Fultz. That's how much people thought he was the next one. And if you know anything about Philly and the Sixers and the tanking and the process, they felt he was the one that was going to come in and complete that process. So by that time, I believe we've gotten Joel Embiid, they got Ben Simmons, and okay, now we have Markelle Fultz, 20-point per game scorer in the college. That should be what we need to actually accomplish, what we need to achieve as an organization. And Markelle Fultz never actually became any of those things that people thought it was going to become. Before recording this episode, I saw somewhere that Markelle Fultz right now is in the G League playing with the Toronto Raptors 905. And it just got me thinking, how does Markelle Fultz actually really feel? How does it feel to be someone where everyone believes you have this potential to be something great? They put that on you. They put their jobs on the line for you, because like general managers got fired because they didn't pick Markelle Fultz. And you actually didn't turn out to be what they expected. Funny enough, Jason Tatum actually just got back from injury. Jason Tatum was picked third overall in that draft. And ironically, Philadelphia Sixers originally had the third overall pick, with Celtics having the number one pick. So Philadelphia Sixers will probably be thinking, we could have just stuck to get Jason Tatum, and we'll probably be further along than we are right now. And on this episode, I'm just really going to explore how potential doesn't really translate to the performance. There's a gap there whereby you have this potential, like I said, but it doesn't pan out to be what people expect. And Markelle Fultz, it's a very interesting case, because I do feel there is a level of translation between sports and life and things we go through. And if you know me, I do love sports. I love the psychology of sports. I love athletes going above and beyond. I love the way sports actually trains your mind to be great. But there's also a flip side there where it can actually cause harm. Not in a negative way, but it can make you feel less about yourself. That I like to explore, because I do think there's a relationship between that and actual real life that we actually do live as regular people. the way the story actually started panning out was very weird because during the G League, no, not the G League, sorry, during the Summer League. So Summer League is the league they have whereby the rookies come in, they play, people that are trying to get on the NBA, they play, they show their skills. He was relatively playing well in the G League. He was killing it in the G League. Next thing you know, news started to come out about his shot mechanics, which is like the most important thing you have as a basketball player is, can you shoot the ball? Can you shoot the rock? If you can't shoot the rock, you have to be very excellent at something. It's either you're a good point guard, it's either you're good at passing the ball, or you're an excellent rebounder. But if you can't actually shoot the rock to a decent level, you might be cooked as an NBA player if we're keeping it a buck. So Markelle Fultz started to lose his shooting. Like, his shot just looked very weird, his shot just looked very funky, but we're not going to go into that. But somewhere along the line, things started to fall off for him, which till now no one really knows the answers. Everybody likes to point to, okay, this is the reason why this happened. The team didn't really treat him well, they didn't treat the shoulder injury well, they messed that up. But do we actually acknowledge how Markelle Fultz feels as a human being? Let's not forget, he was 19 years old coming into the league. 19 years old coming to the league, and people are saying, look, you're the next superstar. You are the next best thing. You are going to change our franchise. That's an expectation that he didn't put on himself. That's an expectation that others put on him, the general managers, ESPN, the media. And I don't think people acknowledge how people see this potential in you. And for some reason, you don't actually get to that potential. Let's explore what I feel about that. First of all, I do feel there's an identity crisis that happens whereby people have this potential of what you could be, and you never actually achieve those things. There is a serious identity crisis that happens from a young age. Like, you're told that you're this person, you're meant to do this, you're going to do great things, which is good. Like, there's nothing bad in thinking someone is going to do great. There's actually nothing bad in doing that. But what happens when that person doesn't achieve that greatness that you see in him, that people see in him? There's a serious identity crisis that happens, because at 19, you're still discovering yourselves. You're still trying to know what you want. Markelle Fultz might have just wanted to be a regular NBA player, a 3-and-D guy, has a good career. He doesn't want to be a person that leads the team, but people saw that in him. People saw that potential and said, okay, you should be the person to take us to the promised land. And I think there's an external piece in this, like an external piece whereby potential is what people see in you. Performance is actually whether you achieve those things that people see in you. And there's a serious gap there. Most of the time, these two things are not in sync, especially in places like the NBA where you're expected to deliver immediately. And that can actually cause a lot of trouble, because before Fultz has even done the internal work to actually be able to achieve those things that people see in him, they've already said, you should be this person, you should be the one to take us to the promised land. And he hasn't even done the work. He hasn't in himself want to be that person. And I do think there's a way us people that are not NBA players can actually relate to that. Like, we've been told we should be this person. We have been told that, okay, you'll be great. You're the person that people always told you that, oh, you're going to be the next best thing. And all those things are expectations that you didn't even have of yourself. That's just the potential that people see in you. It's not something you necessarily agree with. It's not something you necessarily do want to be. Yes, there are people like LeBron that had the potential and exceeded the potential. And there are also people that didn't have the potential but exceeded what people projected them to be. So there's that as well. But what happens when you've been told you should be this person at a very young age and you don't achieve those things that people expect you to achieve? And another thing I want to explore here is the comparison that never stops. Because like I said earlier, Fultz was the number 1 pick. Jason Tatum was the 3rd overall pick. Jason Tatum has gone on to have multiple All-Stars. He's won a championship. He's represented the USA in the Olympics. And sometimes I think about it and I go through things like, how does Markelle Fultz feel? There are other players like Josh Jackson, De'Aaron Fox. These are people that have had decent careers. But the player that everyone thought was going to have the multiple All-Star appearances, be the next point guard, doesn't become that thing that everyone expects him to become. That comparison is very bad because every time Jason Tatum does something, Markelle Fultz's name is going to be brought up to say, the number 1 overall pick has not done this. He's always going to hear his name attached to Jason Tatum, not because he put those expectations on himself, not because he came out and said, okay, I'm going to be next big thing. It's because the people around him saw that he could be something. He carried that with him. He kind of took on that identity at 19, and those things never panned out. And now he has to carry that for the rest of his life. Jason Tatum is probably going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all done, injuries permitting. But now look, let's translate that to our actual life. Like, imagine starting from the same point with somebody. You've always been projected to be better than them. Not from a negative place, but like, if all things were equal, seeing the trajectory of how life has gone, people will bet money on you to say, okay, this person is going to be far ahead than you. And we see that every day in the world that we live in. We see that with social media. We see that with friends that we had in elementary school. We see that with people that, okay, we thought we were better than, people that are far ahead than we expected them. And the thing is that's so dangerous about projecting is that people don't know the damage that it can do because they are projecting what someone could be on someone else. People take that identity and run with it to their whole lives, and that identity doesn't necessarily translate with what the reality is because, like we all know, life happens. Things go crazy. We don't do the things that people expect us to do. And here's my take with like all this is that potential can start to feel like prediction, 100% that this should happen. But at the end of the day, potential is a promise. It's not guaranteed. It's saying that, okay, this person can achieve these things. It doesn't mean this person must or will achieve those things. It's saying, okay, I see the promise in this person to achieve these things. And the fine line is when people take potential as a prediction, an end all be all, right? It's like, okay, this person should do this because he has this potential. And when people say, okay, this person has this potential, they're not guaranteeing anything. They're just telling you what they see. They're telling you what you could possibly be. But at a young age, when you keep hearing that you could be something and you start to take that as your identity. There's so many things that could go wrong as to why people don't achieve their potential. And it doesn't mean they failed. It doesn't mean they were useless. It doesn't mean they didn't achieve something with their lives. It just means they didn't achieve something to the level at which you put on them, not the things that they actually did want to achieve for themselves. And when people start to attach potential to identity, they start to attach potential to what they should be, it can start to feel like a personal failure. It can start to feel like they let people down. It can start to feel like they didn't achieve the things that they wanted to achieve. But if you think about it and zoom out, all this potential, all this promise is something other people saw in you. It wasn't you that said, oh, look, I want to be the franchise player. I want to be the number 1 overall pick. He probably just loved playing basketball as a young kid. He probably loved hooping. Then obviously he became better. He became good. Scouts saw him and they were like, okay, look, you should go number 1. And think about it, Markelle Fultz is still in the NBA. It's very hard to get into the NBA. He still made a decent career out of himself. It still does something that a lot of people could only dream of. I think the real lesson here is that not all projections actually pan out to what we expect them to be. Not everything we say this person should be will turn out to what it is. Not every talented kid turns out to be the most successful person in life. And the goal wasn't for them to always live up to the potential. The goal was for them to figure out what they actually do want to become with their lives and zoom out and remove that potential from them. Potential is a good starting point to how people feel you can be something, which is fair. But it's okay if you don't want to live up to that thing. It's okay if you just want to figure things out and figure out what you actually want for your life. That's fine too. And there's a level of mental fortitude that takes, because you have to detach your identity from what people have said you should become without actually you wanting those things for yourself. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. Everyone said, oh, you should be this, you should be that, you should be this, you should be doing this. But some people just want to do things that they love. They want to explore arts. They want to do things that are not necessarily termed as success as the world views it, right? And as I speak on this is something that I battle with as well, something I think about, because as I've grown older and I've started to actually fall in love with myself, understand myself, is that what do I actually want out of this life? Yeah, people have this potential. People see these things in you. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But as you grow older, you tend to actually see what you want for yourself. You tend to see the things that you actually want to do because you didn't put that potential on yourself. And this is not to excuse being lazy or not pushing through or not working hard, because there's a fine line there, but it's more of actually not attaching yourself to that potential. I think that's the most important thing, is not attaching your identity to that potential. That potential can change. That potential might not be achieved to reasons that are not your fault. Like, life happens. There are just some things that we don't have control over. And I think the most important thing is really figuring out what you want for yourself. You're not responsible for closing that gap that someone saw in you. You're not responsible for that. You're only responsible for figuring out what you want for yourself, figuring out what you want to do for your life, figuring out that at the end of the day, this is what I want. This is what I want to achieve. That is what you're responsible for. We shouldn't put the expectation of potential on yourself, because one, you didn't ask for that. People saw that in you. People said, okay, look, you can be this person, before you even had the chance to actually figure out what you want for yourself. Like, dude was 19, having the franchise on his back. Like, that's crazy. And now that we think about LeBron at the latter end of his career, think about how crazy what he's achieved is. And that's kudos to LeBron. Not everyone is going to be a LeBron. Doesn't mean that they failed. Or maybe that's what actually LeBron wanted for his life. He wanted to be the franchise player. He wanted that, which is totally fine as well. But we put these expectations of people to say, okay, you should be this, you should be that. And if they don't achieve that, it is just something that they carry on for the rest of their lives, draining to carry that expectation. And just to round up this episode, I just want to encourage anyone that has listened to not allow the potential that people have put in you become sort of like a prison, sort of like somewhere whereby it's a cage that if you don't achieve this thing, you fail, because it's not your responsibility to live up to someone's potential that you didn't actually want. The only responsibility you have is to actually achieve what you actually want out of your life. And if you actually achieve what you want out of your life, you get what you want out of your life. To me, you've achieved your potential, because then you're not living to an expectation that people put on you. But I thought the Markelle Fultz story is just an interesting one that we can all draw some lessons from. And it hits for me because I was very big on Markelle Fultz coming out from Washington where he played. I loved the way he played. He had this herky-jerky movement that was just very nice to see. PG boy. Yeah, but it didn't pan out as we all expected. But like I said, there is a lesson to take here, that the only thing you should live up to is what you want for yourself, not what other people have kind of projected that you should want for yourself. And if this episode resonated with you, please feel free to share with anyone that you feel might relate to. Catch you all on the next episode.